Molly's here. Hey, Molly. Oh, it's the return of previous trustees. Gail's here too. How cool.
Oops, I didn't realize I was muted. So I guess we should just wait a few minutes because we might have some more guests, although it's just 3, isn't it? Okay. Does everybody else have 3?
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. So I just wanted to amend the agenda only slightly, just because we got so many letters today. I don't know if everybody got to see them. But anyway, I just want to start by saying the purpose of the meeting today is to review the public comments that we've had the last few meetings and that Marianne has had. We can review the comments from the letters, review changes in the draft document of the building program, and we need to vote to approve it for tomorrow's submission. And then anything else? Does that sound good? And of course, we always start with the minutes. I just wanted to share what, when I did this is referencing the attachments to the minutes. When I did the July minutes, and I had just taken an open meeting law training, and it just said that you don't need to attach every single document, which I think when we're attaching all these things we're reviewing, it could be actually more confusing if we direct people to the website where the draft is. I think that would make more sense. So I know that's been our practice, but apparently we don't have to. We just have to list what we discussed. So is that okay with everyone? You see my point? Like if we're going to review all these things are now in the draft document, doesn't it make more sense to refer them to that instead of everything that's in flux? Am I being clear? Some people look confused.
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's what we're going to do then. Welcome all the guests that we have here. Did everybody hear our purpose today? Okay, I'll review it one more time because we did have some people come in just a minute ago. The purpose today is to review the public comments from the last few meetings that we've had and review the changes to the draft document of the building program and to vote and approve for tomorrow's submission. After we review the minutes, what I'd like to do is share some of the, just briefly what some of the letters, we got a slew of them today, who they're from, the key points, because some of them are direct input about the building program. And then we'll go to trying to review some of the key questions that I got out of the session I was in, and also that came out of some of the letters. And then we'll review all the changes that were made into the building program in the last couple of days. And then we'll have to vote for approval. And then at the very end, we'll talk about next steps and review the upcoming meeting dates and times. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So first we'll start with the meeting minutes. Does anybody have any feedback for Melanie about the meeting minutes from last? They're very detailed. Thank you very much, Melanie. Tim?
I don't see a page number, so there's a paragraph in there that begins with question to Leslie, and I can't pronounce his last name.
Do you want to say which page? Did you happen to print it out, or?
I don't have any page numbers. Let me.
Yeah, if you can scroll and see which page it
Okay, 1, 2, 3. It's page 4 near the top.
Okay.
About 8 or 9 lines down at the end of the first paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
The line is, know the cost estimate as soon as we possibly and responsibility can. I think it was meant to say responsibly can.
Oh yeah. Good point.
Yep, I'll fix that.
Okay.
That was it so far.
I saw a couple little things on the second page. It just seemed like a word was missing. It's the number. Oh, let's see. It doesn't have a number. 1, 2, 3. The third dot down. The third dot with like a 0. That opening near the last sentence. Instead, we should post substantial conceptual changes to the website and new important about the process and knowledge we gain that we would have been doing already. So it just seemed like a word was missing. I wasn't sure. Do you mean like new and important comments about the project process or feedback or new important something about the process?
Yeah, I must have just missed something there.
Thought it was changes.
Okay, could be. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, Tim, you have your hand up?
Oh,
Or
that was from before, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mary Ann?
So at the very beginning, when we were having the discussion about en route,
Yeah.
so the way that we had misspelled en route and we still can't agree on is EN Oh, and you have ON. And so anyway,
Where is that one?
perhaps we can find a way to talk about the word en route in next week's meeting too.
I did not add, I missed it. I didn't add the whole discussion about the word robust to this. I left that out, but if you want me to add that in, I
Okay.
will.
No, that's okay. If we could just correct the spelling of en route to have it be EN
Yep.
from the French. So,
Yeah, it depends who shows up first on Google when you're trying to find the correct spelling, right? Okay, I had one more. It was on the second to the last, third to the last page. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4 dots down. There's a big paragraph. It says the library director jobs. It just needs to be singular, I think. The library director job is already a very full-time job. That was it. Very minor. Good job, Melanie. This was a lot.
Yeah, well, it seems to me that these meetings right now, these meeting minutes right now are like archive documents. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to be really careful.
Yeah, and it won't always
Yeah.
be like this. When we just do policy stuff, it'll be way easier. So it's just the way it
Yep.
is right now. Any other changes recommended by anybody? No? Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to approve?
Yeah.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, who's seconding?
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna briefly
so
say,
can I just say that
Oh.
we're having this meeting on
you're right.
Zoom because
Sorry.
of the pandemic, and it's not really safe to meet in person, and that the video will be available from the town clerk's office until the meeting minutes are posted.
Great, thank you. I always forget that part. So I will just briefly say the name of the person and just highlight what their input was about the building program. And then we'll go to the actual discussion part of all of the changes that Mary Ann made. So I'm going to go backwards. The last one I got today was from Susie Moser, just came in a little while ago. She's thanking us for all of our input and all the work we've done into the draft. She thinks the outdoor shed could be a totally separate project, but she's urging us to consider keeping the pavilion because she thinks it could be really important for overflow space or messier projects. And so that's what she's advocating for. The next one was came in shortly before that was from Cliff Reed, who thanked us for the balanced approach that blends the ideas and wishes for programs and physical spaces with the reality of limitations of funding. He thinks we've done a great job. He thinks that although one can debate the size of the community room, a teen room, or a collections area, the need for these spaces is a result of the town's interest in a new library and programmatic needs to our community. So that was nothing really specific, but then another one was from Arlene Reed, who read the building program, looked at the most recent chart posted of the room's square footage. She supports the inclusion of all the spaces listed, and she knows that there's been some discussion around town about the teen room, and she wanted to specifically support that at 200 square feet, saying that adolescents need their own space with age-appropriate furnishings, decor, an environment that allows for quiet reading or writing or special programs created for or by them. Then we had one. Leslie, since you're here, I think we'll be answering a lot of the questions. The last one that you sent us on Saturday about the square footage, because we'll be doing that today. Is that okay? Okay. His questions were specifically about the square footage of the building and the pavilion, and we're going to be doing that a little later. Mike Vinsky sent one. Let's see, it's very long. Some of this he's already expressed in some of the public meetings, but the main thing as far as input about the building program, he feels it's too large. He's wondered why we couldn't use the plans from Wendell or Leverett. I think he said that before. He's has always been concerned about the cost that's in there too. I think the other main thing as far as removing something from the building program, he would like to see the kitchenette removed because he thinks having a kitchenette would be problematic, issues of rodent and insect infestation, potential fire department response to smoking or burning food, and maintaining a level of cleanliness. It's long, but I've shared it with you and we'll just post that with the minutes. And Marianne got one from Claudia, is it Gear? Okay. She was supportive in a lot of ways, but is concerned about the size of the library. She appreciates all the work that Marianne has done over the years and the trustees. Does not see the value of a teen room. So that was her primary thing, those things, size and teen room and cost. And then I have one from Amanda Alex that doesn't have anything specific, but does talk about, concern about tax rates and that kind of thing. Nothing especially particular to the building program, but we can include that one with the notes. And then Leslie, we kind of addressed some of yours that you sent us on the 20th at the last meeting. Is there anything you wanted me to highlight since you're here? And things that we'll be discussing today anyway about the size and you're muted, I think.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I made a lot of specific suggestions in that October 20th letter.
Yeah.
And my previous letter to that, which I think was October 8th, I was raising a lot of questions about public process and transparency. And just in terms of transparency, I'm seeing the total of the building right now. The day of your meeting, you're going to submit this tomorrow, and the chart of rooms of square footage looks to me like it's 6,828 feet. Is that correct?
Well, I have 5928. That's with the 30% estimate of the unassigned places.
But both the draft number 4 and the chart that's posted on the library website has another 900 for the outdoor spaces. Do not they count towards the overall square footage of the building?
They do, but there's been discussion about whether we're going to keep them or not, which is why they were put at the bottom. We're going to talk about that today.
Okay, I look forward to the conversation, hearing it.
Okay. I just want to say something about, this whole process. And, as we all know, it's been very crunched. And I think that Marianne has been doing a remarkable job given the time constraints and the fact that she's working full time and keeping the library open and still doing this. And I agree with you, Leslie, in that it's unfortunate that this is the way it's turned out, but there was no other way for this to happen. It's just, they didn't give us enough time. We're doing the very best we can. And this is what we have right now. I think that something that would have been helpful maybe, because unless all of us sit there and added up all the pages, there is no way to know the number, right? And I think that if, I've worked on Department of Ed grants where you've had an Excel spreadsheet, if we've been able to enter those in something like that in their template, then we would have had an idea of what was accumulating for space. But until we've approved each area as we talk about them, there's no way to know what the real number is. And that's just the way it turned out. And it's the very best we could have done given the limitations and time. Yes, go ahead, Marianne.
So, and then I just want to say that So we describe our program spaces and add them all up and then add the 30%. And then, and for the pavilion, we don't have to add 30% to the pavilion because there aren't any corridors in a pavilion or stairwells in a pavilion. And then the pavilion wouldn't have the same cost per square foot as interior spaces because it's not going to have heating and electricity and walls and things like that. But, you know, so we add it all up and then we add that 30%. And then when and that's, you know, your best standard practice educated guesstimate. And then when the architects do the design, they look for efficiencies. And so the goal is to create a building program so that when the architects are making that design, there aren't surprises and you've done all of your due diligence to prevent the need for making it larger. With, you know, careful planning and designing. Remember, this is going to be a small building that's all one floor. There aren't going to be stairwells. There aren't going to be corridors, you know. So it's possible that it could be a little bit smaller. And I think that I've done, you know, a really solid job and that it won't be bigger. So, and that was the goal. And you'll see in this last draft that I took out some furniture in some of the spaces because furniture takes up space. And so in order for it to fit into the space that I allotted, you know, like the teen room had too much furniture for 200 square feet. And so I took some out, you know, and, you know, but then I had to add square footage to the adult collections because the adult collections wasn't going to fit in 800 square feet unless we were really magical, and we're not really magical. So the goal was to sort of have it be foolproof. And I do think that this is foolproof.
Right, and MBLC can also give you feedback before the final application,
Right.
Correct? Okay.
Yes, and they will.
Yeah, I'm sure they will, because you've already been getting feedback all along.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so do we want to start with some of the areas that were cropping up as questions and do it that way, or do the whole program? I just was taking notes of the things that were like the things that people discussed the most at the meeting I was at, and then also in the letters, like the total square footage. I mean, we just sort of talked about that a little bit. A lot of that will come out when we talk about the areas that you made changes in. Do we want to go to the next one about the pavilion and the shed possibly being removed? And they're not part of well, they are considered part of the square footage though, but not the 30% as you're saying. So,
I suggest we go ahead and talk about those two issues.
okay, it looks like Brad has his hand up. Go ahead, Brad.
I'm not convinced that anything outside, including the pavilion, is part of the usual square footage. I agree with Mary Ann that you would not apply the same multiplier on outdoor spaces. I'm just not convinced that I think those are two separate numbers. And until I hear otherwise, just because it doesn't make sense for them to be one number, I'm going to treat them as two. We have our indoor space and we have our outdoor space.
I just want to add that the first time we had the first draft of all the things, but we didn't have the total square footage yet, I added them up and I didn't add them in because I thought, how can that be part of the gross square footage? It doesn't make sense. So I don't know either, but we'll find out, right? Okay. So are we attached to the pavilion, or we just want to leave it as is, as a possibility of the cost? What can we discuss it a little bit? Go ahead, Tim. Oh, I'm sorry,
Oh.
Kate, wait, Kate was first. I can see her hand in her background there. So go ahead.
Sorry about that. I'll change my hand color in a minute, but I think that we could leave the shed out of the building program. That seems to me like something that we could do later. And there are plenty of people in town who that I know who would be pretty happy to come and just build an outdoor shed for the library. So that's one suggestion.
Did you have another one? No? Okay, so Tim, you were next.
Let me take my hand down before I forget. First, I agree with Kate. I think I'm on the recycle committee, and I don't know if that's the type of shed you envision, but it's perfectly adequate for what they need, and it was accomplished. I'm looking at the pavilion area sheet. It's page 69. So I have two questions. One is, was that a designated area that the MBLC wanted us to respond to? And after I understand that, I wanted to review the functions and performed and the potential usages of that area.
Okay. All right. Why don't we hear some comments? Marianne, you want to answer that?
But what do you mean by the MBLC wanted us to respond to?
Well, they, in their application form, provide all these areas and lists that might apply to various libraries. I was just questioning whether or not a pavilion was one of the areas in their list as initially provided. Or did we make an area?
I think outdoor programming space was an area. That doesn't mean, so we probably deleted more than half of the areas that they provided. So the pavilion came from community requests. So
Does that mean we're not clear yet as what we've been saying that the MBLC would support funding that? Are we clear that that's the case?
Absolutely. They'll pay 75% of the construction cost of a pavilion.
Okay. And then my second question was just a desire to review the potential uses, functions, the pros and the cons of the pavilion area.
Okay, before we do that, do you have a comment, Brad, that's related to this?
When we did the Irving Library tour, I felt like the MBLC was very strongly in favor of outdoor programming and felt like this was something important for libraries and something at that point that was mostly lacking in Irving and something they wanted to add, they had in their plans. As a trustee looking at this from what would be a very important part of the library, I very much believe that a pavilion would be. Going a bit farther than that, I've heard people say, well, maybe we can take it off and fundraise for it separately. And I think that's a mistake for the town. If we take it off, then imagine we can fundraise, I don't know, X amount of money. If we take it off, a lot of that has to go to the pavilion. If we're building the pavilion, and if we don't take it off, the MBLC is going to pay 3/4 and we only have to cover 1/4. Financially, if this is something that, if people agree with me, that is really an important part of what the new library will be, I think it should be just part and parcel of the main plan.
Okay, and Meryl? Or Marianne, did you want to go first? You want
We'll
to
let Meryl go.
Okay, go ahead, Meryl.
Stephen, hi. Yes, I just want to say that this library is really something for the town's future. It should be something that we're grasping for all townspeople, because it's such a valuable resource for the town. And I mean, I have a particular affinity to sheds, as anyone who knows my involvement with the shed for recycling. And And as well as a pavilion, these are things that really enhance the utility of the building, the functionality of the building. And with the promise of getting 3/4 of the cost of this back from the state, this is the shortest money that we'll ever have to acquire those items. So if we're going to do fundraising, do the fundraising ahead of time for those specific items, if you want to do it that way. And I will commit to some money towards the shed match. And I just think that we've got to look a little bit higher than we're looking, instead of, you know, I know we need to keep this affordable for the town, but it's such little amount of money and can benefit the project so much that it just seems like, why miss this incredible opportunity for the town if we're selected? Thank you.
And then, Mary Ann?
So if we're gonna keep the pavilion in the plan, so when I wrote the description of the pavilion, I included a concrete pad. I think I might have even written, I don't think I did write stamped concrete. I just think I wrote concrete.
Concrete, yeah.
And I have since learned that that is a more expensive option. I was thinking that concrete was a less expensive option. And so I would recommend changing it to either, you know, wooden boards or recycled plastic decking instead of the concrete. And that makes it, you know, then it makes it so that's sort of like a value engineering kind of thing, where we choose a less expensive construction material. It won't last quite as long as concrete will, but it will probably outlast almost everybody in this meeting. So
Okay, it looks like you all set this, Kate? That sounds like a good suggestion, Mary Ann. How about Kate?
Yes, I think that it's important to have the pavilion designed by the architect. And so that's why I think the pavilion needs to be included in the building program. I hear what people are saying about the shed, and I wouldn't stand in the way of including that as well. But the pavilion, in order to work with the rest of the building, needs to be designed to work with the rest of the building. And so I think it needs to be included in that for that reason, as well as the money.
Okay, and then did I see another hand, or are we all set? Okay. All right, so now, Penny, you have a question or a comment? Penny Jakes?
I just wanted to say I completely support what Meryl just said. It seems crazy, if these are important components to our new library, that we take advantage of getting 75% of the cost covered by this grant, if we are so lucky to get it. So just wanted to be a voice in support.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Tim? Are we ready now? What Tim wanted to do? Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I actually didn't hear a discussion that would elaborate a little more on the types of programs and gatherings, et cetera, that this
I
will be
think we're
used
ready
for.
for that. Yeah, I think we're ready for that.
I wanted to add to that this would impact things like the orientation of the building. Based on a visit to Irving, they don't really use their area a lot because of its exposure to sunlight, mosquitoes, et cetera. So for this to be a functioning, viable pavilion, we will need to account for a variety of weather types and its orientation. The impact of those things, as well as just the cost itself, means we don't really know until an architect puts his additional information into it, and until we clarify more about what this would need. Does it need to be protected from mosquitoes to be functional? If we want to have musicians out there for any reason, what do they need? Those types of questions. So I'm not clear from what I've seen in other libraries and we've talked about so far, the types of programs and how frequently, how many seasons it will be used. So I just like to hear some more input on that.
Okay, so why don't we let Brad and Savannah go, and then we'll hear from Mariana to answer Tim's question. How's that sound? Brad, do you have a specific comment?
I just, I feel like I have a role as timekeeper. We're 1/3 of the way through this meeting,
Yeah.
and we have to keep plowing forward. So
Thank you.
I hope we don't get too stalled out in details. Remember, this is a draft we're submitting, a required draft we're submitting to MLC. We will then be reviewing this draft with them over the next few months, and we can pick up details later. But we have a deadline, and we don't have a lot of time to deal with it. So I'm hoping we can, if there's a certain level of detail, I hope we can put it off for after this draft goes out and consider it in the next round of discussions.
Thank you for helping me keep track of the time. Okay, Savannah, and then we'll have to have Marianne answer, and then we'll just have to move on.
So this is related to the pavilion, and it's a bit in response to Tim's question. In some ways, deciding what kind of programs or what usage the pavilion will have is a bit, I think, premature, in the sense that all we really need to think about is the fact that, you know, we've just spent a year and a half sitting outside trying to meet and do things together. And I just think this is going to be the last time. And so it seems to me that deciding about programs and usages, etc., is not something that really we should be diving into right away.
Okay, and then did you want to comment on that, or help Tim understand what the purpose would be?
Well,
And then we can move on.
So I have written mosquito screens into the plan. There'll be, I think you told me about them, Tim. So they're retractable screens because, you know, because in the evening, mosquitoes really can be ferocious. And, you know, so that means we can use it in the evening in the summertime. There will be electricity. So AV equipment could be plugged in. It's not someplace I'm picturing AV equipment installed because it's outdoors and that would present security issues. And then I'm seeing it used for, you know, for everything, for, you know, slime making and bubble making and needle felting and knitting and coffee drinking and barn dances and, you know, book clubs. I mean, you know, we've had, you know, just any ukulele playing, although making music outside. But, you know, small concerts, you know, I'm just seeing it being used for everything. And you know something, if anybody doubts for a second that this building won't be buzzing like a beehive, you haven't been paying attention. That's all. That's, you know, just, it's gonna buzz.
Okay, so sounds like that most everyone is leaning toward keeping the pavilion in, and it sounds like most people are fine with taking the shed out, just because we could probably fundraise for that. The
Well, we
trust-
could, but we would have to fundraise a whole lot less, as people pointed
Yeah,
out.
well, I need to show of hands from the trustees so we know what we're doing. I know the public's here, but we need to, the trustees have to actually vote on what we're submitting. So, okay, so.
I'm not ready to vote.
Okay.
I
This is on
understand,
these
Brad.
two things. Okay, so what are your questions about the billing? Because we do only have an hour and a half. And thank you for keeping me on track here, Brad.
I understand Brad's concerns about time. I would like to say for the record that I see no reason not to include it at this point because it has the potential for turning down money that we would never get anywhere else. But I'm not totally clear in any stretch of the imagination how it'll impact cost or have anything to do with the rest of the structure. So I'm depending on the additional time we have, the architects, et cetera, to understand how everything fits together better. So I would make a motion that we include it. But,
You're talking about the pavilion.
but what? Yeah, but I see that area has a lot of, for me, questions to be explored in the future, but I don't see any reason not to include it at this stage of the game.
Okay, so that's what I'm understanding is that everyone at this point, we want to include it. And then we'll see what happens once, if we get the grant, then the architect will help us understand. And we'll have a cost. Okay, what about the shed? I'm a little unclear on that one. Go ahead, Brad. And then we need to move on to other things, I think.
Just like with the pavilion, I think the shed should be part of the original plan and part of the amount the state pays for. Financially, if it's something we're going to end up doing, we're going to be far better off to have the state pay part of it. And as I said before, all this, we're going to keep negotiating this. This is, to me, this is where I feel I am, and I feel many of us are too right now, and during the process later on, I think more of the kind of answers will come forth. Anyway, I feel that adding the shed is totally fine with me, and I think makes sense.
Okay, Melanie.
I was just going to say that we can either, just to echo what other people have said, we can either fundraise for 25% of the cost of the pavilion and the shed, or we can fundraise for 100%. And it seems really foolish to me to not include the pavilion in the shed at this point in the process, knowing that 75%, if we get the grant, of the costs of these items are going to be paid for by the state and not by anybody in the town.
Okay. So it sounds like most everybody's leaning toward, let's just include both. Are we there? Are we there? We're there. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of heads nodding. Yes. Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's on board. Okay. I feel like I'm running out of time to address all the questions that came up, but some of them will come up, I think, as we get to the page. So do you want to review just the changes you made, Marianne? Does that make the most sense? So, like the total square footage is on the sheet. We talked about the pavilion and shed. The teen room is still in there, and we've had comments pro and con, but there's only been two official ones. Quiet study room, that came up in the group I was in the other day, and I think I saw it somewhere else too, that somebody was wondering if we needed that. Go ahead, Melanie, you still have your hand up, or is that from before?
Sorry.
Go ahead. Okay, Brad?
At this point in time, I'm hoping we don't read the text we've all sent out to you. I would like us to look at, if anything, if there are questions on, all of us trustees received Marianne's list of here are the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, all the changes made sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
I was just trying to respond to some of the public comments to make that were more controversial.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense than
Okay.
specifically looking at the changes
Okay.
that happened.
All right. Okay. All right. So I think that we all feel that the teen room is important, and I don't know that we need to discuss it. Is there anyone feel like we need to? Go ahead, Mary.
I just think if we're going to build a new library, the new library should be for every demographic. So from babies and toddlers to elementary school children to teenagers to young adults and senior citizens. And so why would we not include a space for teens?
Yeah, I have to agree. When my daughter was in middle school, that's where the kids went after middle school. They went to the Jones. They went down to the basement because there was not a teen space. that's where they went. And we don't have anything like that in town. And as Arlene Reed pointed out, kids shouldn't have to go to Amherst all the time to have something to do besides hang in the woods, as my daughter said.
And you know, kids, not every kid can go to Amherst
Right,
because not every kid has a way to get home.
right,
So.
right. And sometimes it's really hard to go pick, if you work far away, to go pick up your kid in
Mhm.
Amherst
Yeah.
later.
Mhm.
Okay, it sounds like at least the trustees are all. Melanie, do you have a comment about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that is the mother of two young adults, one of them being 18 and volunteers at the library. I can say that my children have been fairly isolated living in Shutesbury. And I'm sure that I'm not the only parent with children who's had that experience. And my daughter volunteers at the library partly because it's a way for her to have a social connection. And she said repeatedly that if there was space at the library, she would spend even more time at the library. If there was actual space for her to do her homework, for her to socialize, that would have been a place that she would have spent more time. But the way the library is set up now, there's just nowhere to be in the library. And so it's not a space that she can be in, besides volunteering.
Yep, go ahead, Brad, and then I have a comment too. Go ahead.
I just want to underscore what Marianne said. I thought it was brilliant. What I believe we're planning on is a building that serves every demographic. I think that's just a great way to put it.
Yep. I forgot what my comment was now. Anyway. Okay, Melanie, do you have another one? I just need to take your hand down. I know you're doing two things at once. Okay.
Clarify
alrighty.
that I consider teens to be 6th grade through 12th grade.
Yeah. Yep.
Because some people might just be thinking high school.
Mhm. Oh, I know what my comment was. I'm thinking about how, like during the pandemic, when all the kids were working at home, like how hard it was for some of them because maybe their house is small enough and they have younger siblings that it's hard to focus. And so to have a place where you could actually go and focus and get your work done, I think is what some kids do need. And just to even get out of the house sometimes, Anyway. Okay, sounds like we're done with that one. How about the quiet study room there? That came up at the group I was in on, I think it was Friday. I think it came up in a letter or something too. Somebody might have questioned why we need the quiet study room, small meeting room. Okay, Brad.
I remember bringing this up ages ago, and it's because ages ago I spent my life traveling through all of the North Quabbin doing work, and I constantly needed a place to stop and work, and where I went to was always libraries. I went to every library in the North Quabbin, and I wish I'd had that opportunity to do that at our library too, to have a space I could go. Sometimes it was to meet with other people. Sometimes it was just to get stuff done. And the part that I liked about our discussion about this space is that it's so multi-use. I love multi-use spaces in this context, and having a small area that could be used for lots of things, a tutoring session, a business meeting, a meeting of a community group, some place for quiet study if people wanted to get out, if there was hubbub in the rest of the library. The fact that it has so many facets, I find quite attractive.
Okay, Kate.
Brad spoke my heart, so I'm gonna put my hand down.
Okay, all right. Tim?
I'm looking at the list of areas that totals up. It provides the total. Which area are we talking about now on that list?
The small study room.
150 square feet.
I don't see anything. I don't see anything labeled small study room.
Yeah, it's on that sheet. Indoor spaces, right at 2 above the teen room.
I'm looking at a single sheet with a Word document with the names on the left and the square footage on the right.
Yeah, it's this one, yeah. It's there.
It's right after restrooms.
Yep.
After restrooms, I have telecom closet and janitor closet.
Oh, I think you're looking at an old sheet. If
So
you
it
go
says
to the
100
website,
Or Tim, if you look at your own spreadsheet, it's row 34.
So Tim, it's 150 square feet, and I remember you having some questions about that early on, saying, could we have something like that, like Irving had, because you felt like.
I don't have a problem with it. I'm just wondering if it was included in the totals and I didn't see it.
Absolutely, yes, we have this, the rest of us have this in front of us, so yes, absolutely.
Well, I took this off the last email I got, and apparently I got it off the wrong email. So I'll look for it again.
Tim, I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheet that I believe you made.
I understand that. I'm just trying to
Okay.
make sure that the one sheet that a lot of people are looking at had it on there, and I didn't know that.
Oh, okay,
It's
sorry.
there. I mean, I think it's important, and I feel like, you know, your idea of like if somebody needs tutoring or something, or all of the things that Brad just said are equally important, or maybe it's just a small subcommittee of one of, you know, of the trustees or some other group that needs a little space for a meeting and they can't find anything. I'll tell you a little story. My very last month in Amherst, we had a trainer coming from Colorado. I could not find a place in the Amherst Regional Public School System to train 25 to 30 staff members. So we used the Pelham Library community room. I mean, it was great. I mean, it wasn't great because it didn't have a kitchenette and we had lunch, but it was great for that purpose. There was absolutely no space because school is in session. So to have another space that some other committee, say that there's nowhere in town hall, because as we all know, when we have met there, many times all the committees are meeting at the same time and there isn't a space. And so, you know, it gets tricky trying to find a space. So there might be some small committee that needs it and we'll sign up for it. So, you know, or as Brad said, you know, his work, or as you said, you know, tutoring. I think it's valuable. I think it makes sense. It's a small amount of space. I don't think it really is worth losing. That's my point.
one other use is medical calls, you know, so I'm just thinking, so, you know, so the library serves all of these purposes already in so many ways, you know, and so things that I've done have been test proctoring. And so, you know, so you could see that happening there, or people have come in and used the library for medical calls on a number of occasions. So wouldn't it be nice if there was a little private room for somebody to do a medical call?
Interesting. I never thought about that. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Are we done with that one? One of the other things that came up is people have asked about why is there a need for a locked or safe room? And were you thinking like the director's office, Miriam? That was a little unclear to me. I understand the purpose of having worked for the public schools, and you do need to have a safe place if someone, you know, dangerous comes in the building. But can you answer that?
Yeah, so I think actually the way the plan is now, there's a director's office and a staff workroom, and those could both have locking doors. And I think and I think the question, if I understand it correctly, was where would that be? You know, like and so that's the answer. It could be, I would think it would make sense that both of those rooms would have locking doors. And then there would be panic buttons in those rooms.
And shades too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the heating cooling center, it's not an emergency shelter. We did make that clear in the FAQs. I think there's still some questions about it. I was thinking about this, like, you know, like say we lost power like they did in Texas for like a week or more. That would not be good for the library to not have any AC with all the books. The mold could grow quickly. You know, as we know, if it was a rainy summer like it was this summer, how quickly mold has grown in some people's homes. So that was one thing. And the other thing I was thinking about is if we didn't have some kind of backup power system, then, you know, the pipes could freeze. So it makes sense to me to have a backup heating system and charging system. I think that's what the person was asking about that. Like, why do we need that? Anybody have any comments about that? No? Okay. And the only.
Yeah, sorry, I did, Michelle, it's hard to
Oh,
see
it's so
my
hard to
hand,
see
I
your
know.
hand. I'm
It's
sorry.
really hard to see it, I'm
Blend it
sorry.
in with your wall background.
I
go
really
ahead.
think that, I really do think that we will find additional non-MBLC money to support a relatively constant power supply for the building. I really do believe that's gonna be possible.
Okay. Tim, are you still looking or do you still have your hand up? Otherwise, I'm going to go to Brad.
No, I'm fine. Brad sent me the document that's
Okay.
totally different than the one I had.
Okay. Go ahead, Brad.
This, what just popped into my head was something Marianne, maybe it was Marianne, somebody said, I heard this today already. And this, I think this is really important stuff. And it needs to be part of the design. The time to do this is when you design this building. Doing any of this kind of battery, electronics, power supply, it's so much better and cheaper done when you design it from the get-go than when you do it afterwards. And so I'm very much in favor of including that in the plan.
Okay, and then Melanie, you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make the point again that the library already serves as a heating and cooling center when the power goes out for the community. So this isn't a new thing. This is something that the new library would continue to do, you know, what the current library already does.
And for more people. Is your hand up again, Kate? It's hard to tell. Okay. Leslie, is that your hand? It's not really with your picture, but it's kind of like to your side. Is that you? Do you have a, yeah, is that you?
No, my hand was not raised.
Oh, that's weird. There's a hand there. Okay. I don't know whose it is. Okay. Okay. And then the other thing was the kitchenette. Anybody have any comments about that? I do have something I'd like to say. I feel like being a person who's hosted many professional development opportunities and things like that, like our library programs are. If you don't have water and some way to keep your food cold and to clean up, it's really, really challenging. And also, I know in Irving, they were talking about that was kind of the staff break room. And it is good to keep the food separate from the workspace. You know, when my last year at Crocker Farm, we had a kitchenette and they took it out for a different purpose. And I'll tell you, it was really hard not having that in the preschool wing, to not have the microwave, to not have access to water that wasn't in a bathroom. So I think it's worth keeping there personally. Okay, Brad.
We had some requests for a full kitchen and for basically cooking food related activities and stuff. And I felt as a group, we trustees shied away from that. And I felt like the MBLC encouraged us to shy away from that because there are all sorts of additional issues that happen once you grow to a certain size. So I feel like we've already tried to cut back from some of the requests that seem not feasible for this building. And then I agree with you, Michelle. I run a building in New Salem that doesn't have water, that doesn't have a kitchen, and it's a huge liability. The kitchenette that I would want is very similar to what we're talking about for Spear. Just a small utilitarian thing that could be done for really no big amounts of food. That's not the point. It's just it's for staff, it's for meetings. It's I can't tell you how many meetings I've had where food was an important part, but not lots of food, but enough so you want a sink and a fridge. So I think a small kitchenette would be very valuable.
Okay, Melanie.
I just want to stress that having children's programs without a sink in a library is really, really, really difficult and almost impossible. When you know, finger paints, slime, bubbles, there's lots of stuff, you know, and right now there's no running water, right? So I don't even know how Marianne does any of those types of projects with children. But to build a library and then expect the facilitator of the program to use the bathroom, one of the bathrooms, to clean up the program
Yeah.
is not reasonable.
I agree.
There needs to be a sink, and there needs to be a place at least for staff to put their food when they're in the building, and that is a kitchenette.
Yep. I agree. Okay, Marianne?
In the library. Again, I can't even tell you, the number of times there'd be like some mom who would be dehydrated and lightheaded, and I'd give her the water from my lunch, or, like just, and then, if kids, I can't even tell you like the number of times the kids, so we've had families meet at the library after school in our tiny little library and meet at the picnic table outside, and kids are always hungry after school. And there have been so many times when I have just magically had snacks in my car, and they're just there needs to be some granola bars and some chips in the cabinet for the kids after school. There needs to be some water for that mom who hasn't had a chance to have a drink of water in 4 hours. And so she doesn't pass out. There needs to be room for that kind of thing. And a kitchen makes the most sense. And like employees should have a refrigerator to keep their lunch in, and they should be able to heat up their lunch in a microwave. Like if we're building a building, we're talking about 80 square feet.
Yeah.
And it's, I just.
Do you have any idea how big the one at Irving was? Because I don't really know what 80 square feet is.
Yeah. I'm sure that Brad could look at the plans and figure that out, but I think it's bigger. I mean,
It doesn't need to be big, but I think
yeah.
bigger than what, like Leverage has had a counter, and it's also hard as a person who's hosted a lot of professional development and meetings and things, and you're over there making noise with the food, prepping it while you're in the same room. That's hard.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
Tim, do you have a question? Is that still up there? If not, I'm going to go to Leslie. Tim, do you still have a question? Are you good?
No, I don't. I didn't
Go ahead,
realize it.
Leslie, go ahead.
Observation, just process here. It seems to me that you're beating a lot of these things to death, when I have a sense that you've pretty much come to consensus on the overall square footage and the building descriptions. So I'm just saying, I think you're beating some of these things to death that you've pretty much already come to consensus or agreement on.
I just wanted to make sure we addressed for the record the things that I heard that maybe weren't fully addressed, because we still got a few comments in the emails. If we're done with those public comments, then I wanted to move to the program changes and not necessarily go over each page, but was there something that Marianne wanted to highlight? And let's Marianne do that first. Anything you want to highlight about significant changes that impacted the overall size, or it just, and then the second part would be, do any of the trustees have any questions about any of the changes she made? Because we haven't had a chance to talk about that. Yes, we've all received it. Go ahead, Marianne.
Okay, so the adult collections area, I changed from 800 square feet to 1,080 square feet because the stacks weren't going to fit in 800 square feet. I was hoping that, so what you do is you account for the space that the actual stacks take up, and then the space that ADA compliant aisles take up around the stacks. And I was hoping we would save some room by putting some of the stacks against the wall, but then if aisles dead end, the aisles have to be wider to accommodate a wheelchair turning around. So you don't actually save any space. So I made that bigger because I could not support with data taking out any of the stacks. And then I made the children's room 50 feet smaller. So yesterday, Cynthia and I spent a fair amount of time. So our library is about 800 net square feet on the inside, and the children's room was 800 net square feet. I went through, I added up all of the stacks and all of the furnishings and the play space that I've accounted for. And I decided to take out one table and chairs and to eliminate 50 square feet, making it 750 feet instead of 800 gross square feet. And then I decreased the space of the circulation desk from 300 square feet to 200 square feet. Because with the circulation desk and then a staff workroom of the same size, it should be enough space. And let's see. There was something else. Oh, okay. So I decreased the size. So when I had to add one, I had to add 280 square feet to the adult stacks. So I took 50 feet out from the lobby. And so instead of 200 square feet, it's 150 square feet. I hadn't added space for a cart for the incoming and outgoing delivery bins. So I added that, and then I deleted the bench, and I deleted a lockable display case because there just won't be room for those things. And, like the cart for the incoming and outgoing deliveries we have to have. So that's 150 gross square feet. And then, I deleted the screen to advertise programs at the exterior entrance because that would be an expensive thing that I just don't really think we have to have, some kind of electronic thing outside advertising things.
Is that's what it was, an electronic screen?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. And then, I added in the square footage for bathrooms. So Brad read the plans of the Irving Library, which has 2 ADA compliant bathrooms, and got the square footage for me. And so that was about 60 square feet for each bathroom. So I added that in. And so that we would have it, and it would help make sure that 30% really meets the needs that we have. And then for the study collaboration room, so that room is really 150 gross square feet, is not a very big room. And I had too much furniture in there. So I had 2 small tables in there with 8 chairs, and that just wasn't going to fit. So I changed it to 4, 1 table with 4 chairs. And the same thing in the teen room. I had, I forget what I had before, but I have changed it to 1, I think, so 2 upholstered chairs and a small table with 2 chairs. And then I reduced the size of the teen collection because 15,000 volumes was not going to fit and, was going to take up the whole 200 square feet. So I reduced it to 1,200 volumes. 400 volumes are manga, which take up less space. And so, the teen room's going to be small. But I don't think teens mind being on top of each other. But I reduced the furnishings and the shelving so that it fits into the space. And I think that is it. That's all the changes.
Okay. Can I just ask how much of an increase in the books and materials it is compared to what we have now?
So for adult books, it's about, so for DVDs and audiobooks, I'm not planning any increase because those materials, I'm not planning a decrease either. I'm just planning that the collections will stay the same. For adult books, the collection will not quite double. We have 3,500 now, and I've planned 6,000. For children's books, we have, I think we have 3,700 now, and I put 7,000. So, so about double. For young adult books, we have about 700 now, and I have 1,200. And I thought about teen books. So Cynthia really argued with me about that because we have a lot of adult readers of teen books. But the one thing about teens is they want new books. So there's a librarian friend, she's a children's librarian, she's retired now, but she used to tell me, Marianne, if the books are older than the kids that they're intended for, they're too old. And of course, I mean, that's not entirely true, right? But it is pretty close to true, you know, and I mean, with teens, it's a little bit different, but really they want books that are published in the last 5 years in a young adult collection. So while we absolutely should increase our young adult collection, I feel like we can by bringing it from, and then I looked at what they have for young adult collections in other libraries. I'm always comparing it to what we have now, our use statistics, which are through the roof, what other libraries have. I mean, these are the, the resources that we have. And I feel like it'll be good enough.
So before I call on Brad, I just wanted to have you comment about like how you came up with those numbers, because there's a misconception out there that like last time it was based on projected population. Can you explain
Right.
that, just so we have it on the record?
Yeah. Okay. So last time, the resource that the MBLC encouraged libraries to use, so really for quite a long time, was the Wisconsin standards. And because that was all that was out there, was this Wisconsin standards for library design. And those are old and outdated, and they were written for Wisconsin, right? So they don't use those anymore. And what they've done is they've made that library space planning tool, which is on their website. And in that space planning tool, what they've done is they've shown different size libraries and the different components that different size libraries use. And then they encouraged us to visit other libraries. And then when I'm doing other kinds of grant writing, one of the ways that you explain your needs is by comparing yourself to your peers, right? So a lot of what I did, and it's in the building program, is I compared us to our peers. So I looked for other towns in Western Massachusetts, because Western Massachusetts has higher library use statistics than Eastern Massachusetts. So I looked at other towns that were similar in size to Shutesbury, but had bigger libraries. And I looked at their collections and their usage statistics. And when I showed you those charts, our usage statistics were almost always much higher, but our collections were much smaller. And then I took averages of the collections, and I recommended that we sort of put in the average of the collections, or slightly higher than the average of the collections. But mostly it's pretty much like the average of the collections of libraries our size here in Western Massachusetts, libraries that have room for more books. And I didn't do libraries that are smaller. There are libraries that are in towns with smaller populations that have bigger libraries and have more books, but I didn't use those. I tried to use just our, towns with similar populations.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, sorry, Brad, thank you for waiting.
Sure. I have two comments. One is related both, Marianne, to what you were saying, and Leslie to what you were saying. I've been involved in taking all those documents and sticking them into the 80-page thing and then editing it when I don't edit it so much as I put the edits people give me. And my view of that is that we had a lot of major things going on some weeks ago, and they got more and more minor and smaller. I really appreciate the iterative corrections that are happening. And I also noticed the trend towards smaller and smaller changes. I think Leslie's right in the sense that we've coalesced around something that we believe is a very good design for this library. So that's one comment. I think those that iterative process is going to continue after this draft goes in. It's going to go on with MBLC. My other comment is we've now used an hour and 10 minutes and we have 20 minutes left. I just want to make sure we accomplish everything we need to in these 20 minutes.
Okay, thank you for being timekeeper. Okay, Kate, you dropped your hand? Okay, go ahead, Leslie.
Because time is fast moving towards 4:30, I would really like to make a concluding statement, if you will, and I will make this as brief as I can. I'm taking off of the comment to have a library for every demographic. And I've not read all of the comments, the written comments that have come in. But my question is, how many people have attended all of the meetings over these past weeks? As you know, I've attended most of them, if not all of them. And I appreciate Rita sitting in on some of these meetings as well, because it's good to have somebody from the select board attending, hopefully representing all the community. But the people who have attended and are attending now, are highly educated professional people. And I hear all of your arguments supporting 6,800 square feet to go into the building program. But I have to say that unless something changes in terms of design, unless something changes in terms of funding that is generated for this, and I'll say I've been a library supporter wanting to see a new library from day one. I think I've made that clear. But I think unless the design comes through in terms of economies, in funding comes through in terms of the least possible burden on taxpayers, you're going to have a really hard time selling at town meeting 6,800 square feet compared to the 5,500 square feet that went down in flames in 2009. Thanks. And I appreciate all the work that you've done. I appreciate all the work that Marianne has done. It's extraordinary. But again, I'm just saying this as a red flag going forward.
Thank you, Leslie. We appreciate your feedback. We really do. And I agree with you. We do need to be careful about what the impact is going to be financially. All of us pay more taxes than we would care to. I agree with you. Okay, Meryl, did you have a comment? Because we do need to wrap up pretty soon. We need to talk about next steps so we're clear about the meetings that are coming up and what those meetings are so that everybody is aware. Go ahead, Meryl.
Just quickly, I want to say that I think the library trustees have made an unbelievable effort to reach out to townspeople. And if townspeople choose not to attend, then it's on them, not on the trustees to do that. So I don't think it's fair to say the group that's here is not representative. It's as representative as the level of interest of people who choose to take their time to be involved with this process, because I think there's been a lot of effort to have that happen. And again, this is a library that will be of use to all people in town, and economies are being, there's clearly a strong attempt to make this economical for people, but also not to the point where we're building a library that's for the future of this town, to attract people into this town, to keep people in this town, and to provide an amazing service to people in this town. We don't have kids, so we never had any direct benefits other than educating the children in the town through the schools, and we're happy for that. But this is something that will benefit us directly, and I'm really looking forward to having that kind of a space to do that. So thank you all for your hard work.
Thank you for your input. Okay, Marianne.
I just wanted to say that there's a list of all of the different opportunities for public comment so not just trustee meetings, but a list of all of the different opportunities that we've had over the last couple of months are in the building program, which is posted on the website in the latest draft. And we've included the number of participants in each of those. So you can count it up, Leslie, you can count the total. When we started, the first thing we did was the meeting at the athletic club, and 100 people came. And I think, you know, most of us are zoomed out at this point. And so we haven't had as many on the Zooms, but we've had some Zooms with quite a number of people. And then when I compare this, and Michelle, you know, we were in this together 10 and 11 years ago. We had public forums and nobody came. And, you know, that's not unusual. We're having really good public participation in this process. And we've offered a lot of opportunities for public participation in this process. And we're having much better public participation in the process than we did last time around. And for that, I'm really glad. And it wasn't for lack of trying. We had the programs, we advertised them, you know, using the resources we had. We went around to different locations in town, and people didn't come the last time. You know, I can remember having an open house at the library and nobody came. And we had an open house at the library a couple of weeks ago during COVID, and some number of people came. I'm not going to guess, it's written down in the building program. I think it was 17. So, you know, we're trying, people have been coming, and people have been sending input in other ways. And we did the best we can to this point, and we'll continue working on it. And that's, you know, I don't have a concluding statement. So
Okay.
there you go.
I'm going to go to Kate, but I just want to remind people we have about 15 minutes. So after your comments, we need to review the meetings we have coming up, and then also figure out the next trustee meeting, because then the application is the next process, besides the site selection, which we already have those meetings set up. Go ahead, Kate.
Yeah, I think one thing that'll be really important to think about is we know that square footage is a driver of cost. We also know it isn't the only one. And I would love to know what the different finish choices that we've made are going to mean comparatively. And I know we just can't know that yet, right? But I think if there's an assumption that because the building is bigger, that means it's more expensive, I don't believe that's going to be true, because of the state paying a much higher percentage, 64%, versus I calculated 52%, slightly last time. And the funds that we've raised and will continue to raise, and the cheaper finishes. So I just have this feeling that, and we will continue to incorporate feedback, and we will continue to think about ways that we can make economies. We don't want to propose a building that the town can't support. We don't want to put ourselves through that. We don't want to put anyone else through that. Yeah, that's all. Sorry, I'm going to shut up now. Brad's next, I think.
Agreed, Kate. Go ahead, Brad.
I just want to underscore what Mary Ann said. I think she's done a phenomenal job. I can't believe the number of events she's put on. I don't have the stamina to go to all of them. And there she is at everyone. And I'm just so impressed with the job she's done. As a trustee, I want to, applaud that. It's tremendous what she's done. I know that some people feel like they missed what they wanted, but I mean, what can we do? All we can do is try our best, and this is far better than I thought we could have accomplished in terms of public meetings. So thank you, Mary Ann.
Hey, Tim.
I just wanted to say what I've said probably at every meeting, that jumping on one total area figure and raising alarms is not productive at this point, because this is a changing dynamic process. There are lots of things to happen. There's continual input between now and December 3rd. There's the discussions with the architects, et cetera, et cetera. This is, in my view, the beginning. It's not the end. So I think you know, cherry picking this item or that item and raising the alarm, it's premature and not productive, and a little frustrating for the Board of Trustees to have to continually respond to the same alarms. This is a dynamic, changing process. We're working on it, we're listening, we're trying to think it out. We've been pushed under a very difficult time schedule. I shouldn't say we, I should say Mary Ann. I have no idea when she sleeps because the work she's done is beyond comprehension. But there's going to be a lot of things that are looked at and changed, and you know, please don't grab onto anything and hold on to it for dear life like this is cast in concrete. This is a flexible, dynamic process on both the MVLC's part and our part. I don't know if anybody on the board disagrees with me on that, but that's how I see the process.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is a changing process. So, and it's, so we have just a few more minutes left. Marianne, can you just review the meetings and times that we have coming up, and then we need to pick the next. we need to
Okay,
pick a
so
next
so for the
trustees.
next trustee meeting, everybody agreed to go over site selection questions for Wednesday, November 3rd at 7:30. And then I'm hoping that, and so then the engineers from O'Reilly, Tablet, and Okun, who did our site work, will join us for that meeting and give you all a summary of the work done so far. And then I'm hoping that you'll all agree to meet on Thursday, November 4th. So 2 nights in a row.
What's the time on Thursday?
6 p.m. And that would be, it'd be another trustee meeting. But we would really, you know, the public, of course, could come to the trustee meeting on the 3rd. But we would really encourage the public to come on the 4th and to hear a presentation from the engineers about the results of the site work. And then we could discuss the pros and cons of Lot 032 and behind Town Hall, and then make a decision. Because, you know, because we have to have a survey done of the site that we choose. And if we choose behind Town Hall, we need to do a geotechnical survey done there. So there are 2 more pieces of site work that need to be done. Well, 1 more piece if we choose Lot 032, 2 more pieces if we choose behind Town Hall. And, you know, and we need time to get that done. So I'm willing to meet with you all 2 nights in a row. Are you all available 2 nights in a row?
What time's the second night?
6 p.m.?
They're both 6? Okay.
No, 7:30 on the 3rd. That's the regular trustee meeting time, right? And then
Okay.
6 p.m. on the 4th. And it doesn't have to be 6 p.m. It could be 7 p.m. It could be 6:30 p.m.
That works for me, both of them.
I would love 6:30. I have Zooms till 6, starting at 8.
Okay.
I'd love a half an hour just to not look at a screen if y'all can accommodate that.
That's
Sure.
fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
Melanie,
you.
Melanie, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, just for the minutes, when does the survey need to be done?
So the geotechnical survey and then the boundaries survey with, I don't know, with topography and stuff on it, has to be done by December 3rd. Both of those have to be done by December 3rd.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Marianne, when do you have the application yet?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what needs to be done with that? And is there anything that trustees can help you with?
I'll send it out to everybody. So this site work, so we need to meet with the finance committee.
Mhm.
And I've been talking to Becky about that, and I'll let you know when that will be. And then we need, I believe there's only one thing we need to, so edit the building program, edit the letter of intent. Um, uh, and then I believe there's only one question that we have to write an answer to, and I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's not something, it's not a rocket science kind of question.
Okay.
It's,
And
it might be like the summary of efforts so far or something like that. So we have to talk about, we have to answer what the town's bonding capacity is and strategies for the town to meet its financial portion of it. So, and that's why we would meet with, the finance committee and then talk about, this whole process and this whole effort. And then, and it's not nearly as comprehensive as the building program.
okay.
Um,
I have one more question, then I'll let Melanie and Brad go. My question is, have you put on the website when we need to have the last public comment in? Because I was reminded of that because of needing to edit the building program. And how long do you think it will take MBLC to give you feedback on what we submit tomorrow?
Oh, I don't know. But it won't be long. So because they only have 2.
Right.
So it won't be long. So I think, so we're submitting that tomorrow. And then I think, I think next week we do the site selection, and then maybe the week after that we have, by then I think I'll have heard from the MBLC. And so then, can you guys all meet on Monday, November 8th at 7:30? Go back to,
Yeah.
I mean, what else are you gonna do on a Monday evening at 7:30? Hang out with me and whoever else shows up.
Will that be to talk about the feedback if you have it from MBLC, and then when do we need to have the public comment in? I mean, it's been up, various versions.
I
of the
would say
press.
so people can, why don't we say people could make public comment until the 15th? Because then we've got, more than 2 weeks.
Yeah, I just want to
Um,
make sure you also have some time to do any, and then we have time to discuss if there's
Right.
anything radical we need to do.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
And can you post that on the website so people know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
thank you.
So
All right.
public comment about the building program is due by the 15th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All
Okay,
righty.
Melanie.
I just wanted to propose that we commit to meeting weekly until December 3rd on Monday night, because
I think you're right.
I think we have to. I just think there's too much work,
I think there's.
and Marianne needs our support, and we need to,
Yeah, I think
there's
you're
feedback
right.
that's going to be coming in, and we need to address it. And
I think you're right.
I want to hang out with Marianne and all of you on Monday nights.
What about me too?
Okay,
too.
you're welcome.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay, Brad. All right, let's put that in our calendars in right through the
So,
end of November.
My main question is calendars. I just wanted to go over this again. I cannot meet every Monday. I have other conflicts on at least every other Monday. And I've been successfully bumping those, but I've reached the end of my ability to avoid my other Monday conflicts. So if we met Monday, the 8th, that would be perfect for me. If we want to meet the next week, I probably can't do Monday. I'm on an every other Monday schedule. But backing up, I think we just talked about, we have a meeting at, well, we're talking about Monday. We have a meeting on the 3rd at 7:30. I think we went to the 4th at 6:30. Are we all in agreement on that
Yes.
one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I agree with what Melanie was saying. I sort of feel like we should plan weekly meetings and then cancel them if we don't need them, rather than not plan them and then have to keep planning, adding more. So
I think-
other than my inability to do every Monday, I agree with weekly meetings.
Okay.
Is there another day of the week that people can meet?
Kate has a,
Oh, sorry.
her hand up, that's okay.
I suggest that we figure out when the next meeting is at the 8th meeting. Like then, because we were at time. Do
okay.
we need to take a trustee vote on submitting this as a draft? We have not actually done that.
I assumed we did, and I had put that on the agenda, so.
Okay,
This,
yeah.
I just want to make sure we had all these meetings straightened out, so if we
Yeah.
have it,
No, I'm
let's-
sorry. I
Let's do
appreciate
that.
that.
Let's meet on the 8th and just try to, people could pencil it in, but if we're trying to accommodate Brad's schedule, we might be able to do like maybe something Monday, Tuesday, or whatever works for other people. So just make sure you have your calendars available at the 8th meeting. Okay. Is that all we need to do for dates? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to accept and approve the draft of the building program as proposed? Okay, Brad made the motion. Was
Can
someone
I
else second?
second
Second.
enthusiastically,
All
please?
right, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Can I just ask you to do a roll call vote?
Okay, sure.
Just say your name and your
Okay,
vote.
go ahead. Okay, go ahead. Brad, you're up in the upper corner. Go ahead first.
Brad, I vote yes, I approve.
Okay, Kate,
Kate, so I approve and vote yes.
Michelle Regan Ladd, I approve and say yes. Go ahead, Savannah.
Savannah Willett, I approve and say yes.
Okay, Melanie.
Melanie De Silva, I approve and say yes.
Where's Tim? Way down there. Tim.
Tim Logan, I approve and say yes.
Okay. All right. We're done. It's going in tomorrow with the changes that Marianne made. Thank you, Marianne, for all
You
your
guys are troopers. Thank you so much.
Congratulations,
amazing.
Marianne. Well done.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and we look
Yeah.
forward to continued feedback. So keep writing to
Yeah.
us, Leslie, if you think of other things.
Sure will.
We do appreciate your
Thank
participation.
you.
And thank you, the
Yeah.
rest of the guests for coming, visitors for coming tonight. Your feedback is
Yeah.
important. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see everybody.
Yes,
It is.
thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Or
Yeah,
as I should say,
especially for you.
good night. Bye. Oh, right. It is night for me. Bye.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you, Kate. Thank you for joining from across the pond. So,
Absolutely a pleasure. Cheers.
all right.